Well, by the time you're watching this, it may actually be the new year. It may be 2025. But for me, as I record this right now, it is about 6 hours until the new year. Maybe I'll get a little kiss at midnight, start my new year off right. Wow, I'm just, so impatient right now. I can't wait for it. Yeah, that's right. I'm so impatient that I actually wish I was on the other half of the world right now. Yeah, the new year has rung in already in Russia, so, maybe I'm a little jealous right now. But I probably shouldn't be that jealous because if you remember, about a year ago or maybe a little less, it was announced by, I believe, Moscow, Russian officials in general, the Kremlin, I don't know all those fancy names, but basically it was announced by Russian officials that among other things that they kind of have to do theirself now, they are going to try to make their own video game consoles. Now, the reason for this and the reason they're kind of doing a lot themselves right now is mainly because of all of these trade embargoes that have occurred ever since the Russia-Ukraine war started. So a lot of countries, like I believe every country in NATO and maybe other countries as well, now have an embargo on Russia. Really, at this point, the only major countries that they can trade with are China and North Korea. There are a few others, but I would say China is really the main one. Xbox is based out of the US. They have a trade embargo on Russia. And then PlayStation and Nintendo is based in Japan. Now, they are not in NATO, but it looks like they do have an embargo on Russia. As of March of this year, they extended it by another year. So yeah, to summarize, the two countries that have the three main consoles in the world are not trading with Russia. So that means no Mario, no Master Chief, no Solid Snake is coming to Russia anytime soon. So yeah, they had to take it upon themselves to make their own consoles. Now, I remember hearing this and thinking, I don't actually know if they are going to go through with this plan, but it actually turns out they have. Yeah, they are making two different consoles right now. Now, one is pretty much as standard as it comes to a console. It is just a box with certain hardware capabilities in it. It's extremely similar to what we know of as a console. And the other one is like a $45 streaming device. It's kind of interesting, actually. It lets you play games in the cloud while renting the hardware from people who have better settings on their PC. Yeah, you can actually rent out their PC capabilities, per hour. It's kind of interesting. Well, it sounds like this endeavor, who could have expected this, is not going well for Russia as of right now. So this is coming from a man named Anton Gorelkin. This is on his Telegram page. He is the deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee on Information Policy. That's quite a mouthful. Essentially, he's a bigwig in IT for Russia, and he's been working, among other things, on this plan to build these two consoles. Now, regarding the console that is not based off of the cloud, it's more of a traditional hardware type console. He made a post on Christmas Day talking about this. Now, I will be honest, everywhere I have looked, I have not seen an official name for this console. I mean, if anything, you gotta think of a catchy name, right? Yeah, I don't know. Looks like they haven't done that yet, but from the development that has occurred right now, it's interesting because, among other things, among just not being able to import Xboxes and PlayStations, they also cannot import parts that they would need to make consoles from these countries that have sanctions on them. So Intel chips, NVIDIA, programs and software that are all developed in the US and the UK and Japan. They can't do that. They kind of have to start from the ground up. They have to make them themselves. Or they might have to reach out to China to trade them some of these parts that are important for this console. It sounds like they may be doing just that, but they have developed their own processor. Now, this is called Elbrus. Now, does it compete with the top-of-the-line Intel or NVIDIA processors? It doesn't sound like it. So Gorelkin said in this kind of lengthy Telegram post, which I will link, and you do have to translate it. He said, quote, "It is obvious to everyone Elbrus processors are not yet at the stage of development to ensure equal competition with the PS5 and Xbox, which means that the solution must be non-standard," end quote. Yeah, there's possibly some frustration that they just are not up to the same level as what the PS5 and the Xbox can pump out, which is kind of funny because a lot of PC people that are, in the US or the UK or whatever, will oftentimes, and accurately so, talk about the most recent Xbox and PS5 and about how the specs are not nearly as impressive as what they have in their PC. So this Elbrus processor, I don't even know if it's running at the level of a Nintendo Switch these days. Who knows? It does sound like, though, that there's a foundation called the Skolkovo Foundation. Now, this is an agency in Russia that has been tasked with basically this whole console development roadmap. Now, the Skolkovo Foundation was founded 14 years ago in 2010 with the goal of developing these new sciences and new technologies. It's kind of interesting because, yeah, this was developed not necessarily as a response to the war, but rather, just whatever was happening in 2010. But now with the war and with everything completely changing, it now sounds like this foundation has a pretty big task ahead of them, and that is to make two of Russia's consoles. But yeah, it sounds like, at least as for one of them anyway, it's not going too well. Yeah, it turns out no trade is really not that great of a thing. Having sanctions up with pretty much every country results in people having to make their own consoles. And what's kind of interesting about this whole story is that the struggle to make a console that is really worth anything here is already a problem in and of itself, but I would love to hear how, game development is going. I would assume they might do some things that are similar to, like ROM hacks that people do, these days. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have absolutely no facts to base that off of. This is absolutely just my opinion, but I could see Skolkovo or whoever is responsible with developing these games to, I don't know, just maybe get some game, like a Fortnite or Halo or Super Mario or whatever, and just kind of dissect it and make it its own thing, I guess. But from what it sounds like, they might not be able to run current gen type games. So if that is true, they might be going back to the Stone Ages and doing this with N64 or PS2 type games. It will be very interesting to see how this project shapes and where it goes as we go into 2025. Right now, though, as we end 2024, it ain't going too well.